Teachers and good afternoon. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat and welcome to our Thursday stream no and Thursday schedule or session for today no as part of our January series. Okay, so good afternoon po at maraming salamat sa mga pagbati no sa sa session natin for today. Nagkataon that our session today is also my birthday. So thank you so much for celebrating no and spending this time no with me no. Supposedly talaga dapat 'no, wala talaga tayong session. We will not have a session for today kasi nga birthday ko. But, initially, I put, a schedule on this one because, we plan not to go for a family trip, on the next few days, to celebrate my birthday. But again, dahil sa ano 'no, dahil sa Omicron and dahil sa spike ng cases, hindi kami natuloy. We're supposed to go to Quezon, to meet my family and to spend my birthday with them 'no. Of course with my ano rin, my wife and my daughters. Kaya lang yun nga na 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 hindi natuloy pero still, tinuloy ko na rin 'no, itong session natin for today kasi naka-schedule na tayo for today. And of course, na-realize ko rin that the best way 'no, to also celebrate my birthday is to celebrate with the people have been supporting me no all throughout no for the last 2 years no supporting Kaagapay teacher support throughout the years. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat no. At for today as well, hindi po ako hihingi ng regalo no. Ako actually ang magbibigay sa inyo ng mga regalo. Kaya sabi ko nga dun sa post ko kanina no or nga kanina, pakihanda na po ang inyong mga GCash numbers because we will be selecting some teachers no to receive some cash gifts no. Hindi naman sobrang laki but it's just a reminder no of our efforts no to continuously give no to our teachers no just as a reminder that you are continuously being loved by Kaagapay Teacher Support. So yan, maraming salamat po no. Sa pakiready na lang po mamaya po, wag niyo munang ilabas no. Baka kasi matabunan, hindi ko makita kasi medyo pumapasok yung mga greetings ng mga teachers natin sa ating chat no for today. Okay, so before we go to that no, I'd like to first greet everyone. Good afternoon. Hindi ko na po i-run no ang ating ang personal greetings. Mamaya ko na lang po kayo i-personal greetings teachers no. But for those who are here and live no watching us live today, good afternoon no and I hope that this is a good Thursday no. Prelude to our Friday and hopefully we get to have a rest for the next few weeks no. And of course no, still hoping na lahat po kayo safe no sa inyong mga bahay at safe ang inyong mga pamilya. Kung meron po may mga sakit sa inyo ngayon at ang inyong mga family members ay may sakit no, I'm praying for the fast recovery no of you and of course your family members. Okay. So at of course bago rin tayo mag-start no, baka lang po pwede ako humingi ng favor. Could you please also share our link no so that we can invite more educators kasi napakaganda ng topic natin for today. No? At topic na hindi masyadong pinag-uusapan pero napakahalaga, no? Especially for educators. No? Regardless kung nasan po tayo, regardless kung nasa Pilipinas, nasa ibang bansa, the reason why we have invited no, some speakers from another country to share with us not only what is socio-emotional learning, okay, but also will be sharing with us today, you know, a platform where we can promote socio-emotional learning no or socio-emotional support for our students, okay, for our co-teachers, kung kayo po yung mga administrators, this is also a perfect platform for you to use no in your promotion okay of socio-emotional aspect both of teaching and learning. Siguro gusto ko i-emphasize din yun no kasi mamaya pag-usapan natin na hindi lang to para sa mga students natin, that this discussion is also for our teachers kasi isa po tayo no sa mga talagang tinamaan din no ng stress, ng anxiety, ng frustration at kung ano-ano pang mga emotions during the last stretch of the pandemic school years. Okay. So for today, teachers, what we're going to have now, we'll be having a discussion okay, on socio-emotional learning. Okay, and this will be with Clanbeat. No, Clanbeat is an application. It's a platform that provides no mechanism to address the socio-emotional learning and of course promote well-being of our teachers. Okay? And of course, not only teachers siguro, no? Madami pang mga professionals. Okay? So this is not just limited maybe to educators because the platform itself has so many features that promotes well-being, which will be discussed later on, no, ng ating Clanbeat representatives. That's going to actually part of the discussion for today. Okay. So what we're going to do today, teachers, no, is that we're going to first discuss what is socio-emotional learning. Okay. So we'll be going through the general concept of socio-emotional learning, okay, the concepts of well-being. I know that you have gone through so many webinars already about well-being, okay, but it's also good to be reminded about and to continuously talk about it, to bring awareness about socio-emotional aspect, no, of what we do as teachers, okay. And of course, half of the session will be exploring, no, Clanbeat as a platform for well-being, no, or supporting well-being of our teachers and our students. Okay, and that will be taken care of, no, by our two speakers today, which I have the honor to present to you ang ating dalawang speakers for today. No? So first, okay, let me first introduce, no, our first speaker. One of our speakers for today, okay, who will be leading our discussion, okay, Maria Zacarias, okay, works as a teacher community manager at Clanbeat, which studied language and psychology in the UK and Netherlands, and has coordinated the development of various educational programs around the world aimed at developing 21st century skills among learners. Her main focus are socio-emotional learning, non-violent communication, and global sustainability education. And of course, together with Maria, no, will be also Toby Khan, who works as a well-being lead, no, at Halcyon, London International School, at the story maker at Clanbeat. He has been involved in establishing and growing international schools for 15 years and has a particularly extensive background in developing well-being curricula together with senior leadership and teaching staff. He's an expert in inquiry-based learning and social-emotional learning. Let us welcome to our stream our two speakers, Toby and Maria. Welcome, Maria and Toby.
Hi, thank you, Franco, for this introduction. It's lovely to be here today. Hello to everybody. I'm Maria calling in from Tallinn, Estonia. It's 11 o'clock in the morning and it's a beautiful day outside with lots of snow. I'm very, very grateful to be here. Now, first things first, happy birthday, Franco.
Thank you, Maria.
It's,
And
yeah.
welcome to the Philippines again. No, of course, it's not the first time we have met. No, we have already met before, planning for this session. But welcome to the community, and again, thank you for being generous and accommodating our request to be with us. Okay,
Of course.
especially with the time difference. No?
And a quick hello to London, to Toby. Would you like to greet us as well?
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Toby. I'm here in London. We don't have any snow, but it's cold. And I'd also like to give a happy birthday to Franco as well. So thanks for having us, guys.
Yes, thank you, Toby. So we are now actually from different countries right now. So one from London, one from Estonia, and of course one from the. Of course, we are from the Philippines. Okay. So before maybe before we start our session, Toby and Maria, we'd like to first maybe like get an overview exactly on. Of course, I already gave them an overview earlier. I hope that that did not preempt anything from your discussion. But could you just like give us, Maria, the flow of the discussion for today and the things that our teachers will be expecting from our discussion?
Yes, absolutely. So we will be talking about social emotional learning, some of the key concepts and frameworks, CASEL in particular, and then we'll be looking at how to implement social emotional learning in the classroom. So Toby will be sharing his personal experience as a well-being lead, the different practices or the strategies that he has developed. And from there, we're going to move into a discussion about Clanbeat, the platform, the application, and how we might be able to implement our SEL activities on Clanbeat. We are open to your questions, your comments at all time. All of us, we're going to keep an eye on the comments thread, so please feel free to express your questions at any time.
I would just add as well that I think part of what I'm here to share is messages and experiences and practice that are happening in schools in the UK and in London. And I hope that they bring a degree of hope and optimism, because I know we all live in quite challenging times, and some of these things may feel contextually relevant and exciting for your school. So if that's the case, then I think that's a nice takeaway from this experience, that you'll have something that you can explore or connect to. Let's hope that works.
Thank you, Maria and Toby, for that. And before again I give the floor to Toby and Maria, teachers, I'd like to again to reiterate what Toby said. No, context will actually play part in this discussion. Okay, both Toby and Maria are coming from a different context, from a different country. So what we would like to invite all our teachers today is share in the chat your own context. Okay, your own experiences, your own insights. Let Toby and let Maria know about what you're experiencing, some of your questions, okay? So they can actually also be more specific to their answers because again, they're coming from their own experiences and their own context. So let's collaborate in this discussion, teachers, okay? So without, without any more delaying the discussion, Toby and Maria, the floor is yours now, and I'll be giving you the floor for discussion.
Thank you so much. I'll be sharing my screen with a couple of slides. And I think while I'm doing this, just wanted to mention, Franco, the fact that you're willing to do this session on your birthday is really, really significant. And what you said in the beginning about giving a gift to teachers to show how much you're loved, I just wanted to convey how meaningful and how beautiful that was. So let's look at social emotional learning together. We are from Clanbeat, as was already mentioned, which is a platform that supports growth, connection, and well-being. It's a digital space that's safe and secure, meant to cultivate our social emotional learning skills. So I'm happy to be here today with Toby. Already mentioned, he's the wellbeing lead at Halcyon. I'm working as a teacher community support at Clanbeat. I wanted to mention that we would love to connect individually with all of you. So feel free to reach out via LinkedIn so that we can stay in touch and continue the discussions later on. So today we'll be talking about social emotional learning. What is it? What are the key concepts? We'll look at Clanbeat and discuss how to implement social emotional learning via Clanbeat. Before we start, let's just consider very quickly what we see around us globally. So for one, we see that successful, high-achieving students are pushing themselves to the limits. So there's this pressure to be the best, which is considered now a high risk factor for adolescents' mental health. We're also seeing how constant comparison on social media is leading to symptoms of poor mental health and depression sometimes as well. And ultimately, the OECD report showed that there's a proportion of students who believe that intelligence is not something that we can change about ourselves, that there is lack of motivation to go to school and they don't have this kind of a growth mindset that we would like to cultivate. So as an example, here is Daniela and her story. So on the surface, everything is looking well. She's got good grades. She loves to read and cook. She's a social change advocate, but perhaps underneath, she's feeling underwhelmed and stuck and struggling with time management and not getting enough sleep. Of course, with uncertainty from COVID-19, there's even more stress and pressure. So she's feeling lonely and disconnected. COVID-19 has made the situation worse. So we see that students are lagging behind in their studies, that mental health conditions and concerning behaviors are increasing, that there's a number of students who are chronically absent. And of course, most importantly, the teachers are sometimes lacking the tools and the energy to support their students. So perhaps this is not the case everywhere to the same extent, but it's a general tendency. And especially this last bit, we're seeing on social media how teachers are saying that they're tired, they're exhausted, that they are thinking about quitting the profession. This is super, super worrying. We don't want that. So please comment in the chat, what are the biggest issues that you're facing right now in the Philippines? What are you struggling with with regards to keeping up this change and uncertainty? So how can we deal with it? How can we support coping with uncertainty? One answer could be to support social emotional learning in the classroom. So SEL is the process of developing self-awareness, self-control, and interpersonal skills that are important in the school, at the workplace, and life in general. So it's about coping with our feelings, about feeling empathy for ourselves and towards others, about being able to show that empathy, and about working towards our goals, whether they are personal or collective. It's about working in teams, about solving conflicts, and it's about taking responsible and kind actions. So I wanted to quickly mention that we are not born knowing how to manage our emotions and how to solve problems, but these are skills that also need to be developed. And that SEL as such doesn't have to be constrained as a subject in a school, but rather integrated or woven into the fabric of the school's curriculum. Is this making sense so far? Yeah, good? Hope so. All right, so let's look at one framework in particular. I'm going to go through it and then take all your questions and discuss with Toby how to implement it. So this CASEL is an organization based in the US, and they have created this widely adopted framework for SEL that includes 5 core competencies, which we'll go through one by one very quickly. So the first competency, for instance, is self-awareness. It's understanding our emotions, showing and how they influence our behavior. Also acknowledging our strengths and weaknesses for a sense of confidence and purpose. So especially this first aspect is really important. So we want to understand how our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions are interconnected. How are we feeling at a given point in time, and what is the cause for that emotion or for that feeling? Right? Fairly self-explanatory, and everybody knows that it's very, very important. Then the second aspect is self-management. How do we actually manage those thoughts and the emotions and the actions in different social settings and situations? And how can we handle stress and feel agency to actually accomplish these goals? So it's about regulating our emotions and behaviors, perhaps delaying this gratification that you're willing to be patient and hold on and work towards a more valuable reward in the future. So really being able to control how we act and how we think in different situations, right? All good so far? Right, let's move on to the third aspect, which is social awareness. So this is the bit where we learn to empathize with others who might be from a different culture, from a different background, and to understand the different social norms and the ethics within our home, our school, our community environment. So it's all about actually treating the other person as we would like to be treated ourselves, this constant truth that we need to remind ourselves of. And we start to understand compassion. We need to start understanding others and feel compassion for others as we are more socially aware. The fourth aspect is relationship skills. So here we are thinking about building, maintaining healthy relationships with people from different backgrounds, again, and communicate, to cooperate, to resolve conflicts, and know when to offer help. So we want to be able to solve conflicts, to listen actively, to understand what other people are needing, and perhaps to resist in going along with peer pressure or bullying or what's happening in the school, to really be that kind person that we intend to be. Finally, the fifth aspect here is responsible decision making. So this is about making caring, constructive choices for ourselves and for others, and choosing how to act in a situation based on the ethics and the safety and the well-being of ourselves and the others around us. So we learn how our decisions impact others as well as students. Yeah, it's really just simple truths that we need to remind ourselves constantly again and learn to practice them in our daily lives. Why is it so important? Well, because research is showing that SEL skills are helping young people to know and to manage themselves better. This is going to in turn increase their academic success and induce more positive behavior, and ultimately reduces misconduct, substance abuse, and emotional distress. So having these skills, knowing ourselves better, observing our emotions, observing how we communicate, might be able to help us stay more motivated and to actually survive, to get through this very, very, very difficult time of COVID-19, of all the stress, anxiety, and uncertainty. So a couple of things. How can we then do this? How does it look like in practice? Well, you can think about it in many different ways. So for instance, you could have a dedicated part of the school day devoted to SEL. So for instance, you could have your homeroom classes. That's the space where you practice something related to social emotional learning. Or you could decide that whatever formal subjects you are teaching, that these skills are integrated in very, very small, tiny pieces into each and every subject. So the researchers are saying that you should always think whatever activity you're developing, is it sequenced? So this is meaning, can you show that they are connected and that you have different activities that are leading up to some kind of a goal, that they are active, that they're engaging, that students like to come along with it, that they are focused. And then ultimately, of course, explicit, so that you're always making clear, okay, guys, this is about addressing our social emotional learning skills. This is about understanding our emotions, to really make us conscious and to bring that topic to the table, to the classroom at all times. These are the researchers. From my personal experience, I wanted to share a couple more ideas. So I really love stories, and I think it's super, super important that we create characters and show how real people are demonstrating empathy and managing their emotions. Also, these small activities, so you don't have to think, oh, this is so big and it's complicated, I don't know where to start from. Just start from tiny steps, from one little practice, or perhaps short videos or little reading exercises, whatever it is, and you can then grow your practice step by step. Give the spotlight. So whenever a student is practicing empathy or social emotional learning, then give them the attention, emphasize how good that behavior was, and try to encourage others to keep acting like that. And ultimately, co-creation, co-create. This is a concept that our application is based on as well. Whatever exercise or activity you come up with, go to the students and think together of how you might be doing it. Go to them for ideas. Discuss together why this whole thing is so important. Why do we need to talk about well-being and kindness and compassion and all of these things? Ask the questions and base your work and your exercises on the answers that you're hearing from them. Okay, so I've been talking a lot now. Thanks for listening to this monologue. I would love to now bring in some practice from Toby in London, from the Halcyon International School. How do you implement it? What is the value? And same question to all of you teachers here in the comments. Do you practice social emotional learning? What kind of exercises do you enjoy? What are your struggles? What are your challenges, and how do you overcome them? We'd love to hear that. Now, inviting Toby to share his perspective.
Hi, thank you, Maria, and thank you for that intro and for the kind of overview of the CASEL framework. I think it's really important. I was just reading some of the comments in the chat and recognizing some of the expressions, because I hear them a lot in the schools I work in, about the stress and burnout and complexity of our work. And I wanted to acknowledge it. I also wanted to say that it was like that before COVID too. It's just that COVID has exacerbated it. And if anything, it's highlighted the demands and expectations on our profession in a way that I don't recall in the 20-something years I've been in teaching, a time when it has been so challenging. And so please know, colleagues, that this is a feeling and an expression that I am hearing everywhere we go. And we hear that in Estonia, right, Maria, from colleagues? We're hearing that from, everywhere we are. Teachers are under scrutiny and the demands have never been so great. And it's not sustainable and it remains untenable. And sometimes I feel that the demand is a bit like being stretched in in an inconceivable amount of directions. And you as an educator are required to hold integrity, often integrity within a system which is failing to have any. And I know that sounds quite polemic, but actually, this is just because it's like where the rubber hits the road is with the schools right now. In UK schools, we are expected not just to be educators, but actually nurses and safeguarders, and the complexity is great. So please know that actually the reason why I remind us of that is that I know the answers to what we need to do in schools. It actually lies within our profession, within us as educators. I don't think there's any superhero who's going to come down and save us, guys. We have to, at a grassroots level, begin to rethink some of the strategies and ideas that really matter to us as humans. And we have to live within institutions that are human-centered and human scale. And actually, that is exactly what SEL is about. And what we talk about when we say co-creation is actually co-creating SEL experiences within our schools. And there's another point that I hope gives you a bit of optimism. I just want you to think for a moment about maths. I always speak ill of maths because I'm not very good at it. But actually, maths as an idea and as a curriculum subject began being taught in Italian schools in the 1300s and occupies the very center and core of a lot of our curriculum space. In schools that I work in, it normally gets about 3 to 5 hours a week by very trained, very dedicated colleagues, right? And everybody runs around and provides calculators and gives them the best resources and normally the best rooms. And then you move through the priority of school until you find your SEL programs and your PSHE teachers and your wellbeing curricula. And really, that's only been occupied since John Dewey, CASEL was founded in 1994. Let's give it 30, 40 years of professional experience, right? Generously. Just compare that to the way we provide for maths, and recognize that if you feel that it is somehow a bit unwieldy, a bit complicated, not clear to you how best to produce powerful SEL experiences in schools, that's because it isn't. That's because we don't have the history and capacity and best practice to the same degree as we have in all these other subjects. So please give yourselves a break and just observe that. And don't feel like you don't quite get it right, because I having worked in wellbeing in schools and SEL for 20 years, I can tell you that I don't see a best practice model that I would give you today and say, this is what you must do. Because as Franco said at the beginning, it's entirely contextual. And we need to do the things that are right within our communities. And that means listening to our communities. And that means thinking about our role as educators. And I suggest that first and foremost.
I think, Toby, just quickly emphasizing how important this point is. So in no way do we want to put more pressure on teachers. I'm reading here in the comments that there are many who are struggling and there's so much work already. So now you have to think about this layer of social emotional learning and integrate even more exercises into your work. That's not the goal. It is thinking about what you are already doing and how you might be slowly but surely bringing in these couple of aspects of learning that we were sharing, and how to integrate it so that it doesn't feel as extra on your shoulders, that it's not an extra burden. And as Toby was saying, there is no right or wrong way of doing it. And it's all still in the phase of experimenting and exploring and seeing together what works for us with our students, with our age group, for instance, in our communities. Thanks, Toby, for bringing that out.
Hey, nice, Maria. And actually, so there's a really great piece of research that was conducted in 2008 on SEL. And one of the great findings of this was that SEL competencies are not developed uniquely by programs, but by supportive environments. And there's two things I'd say about that. The first is, I just want you for a moment to remember your school experience. For me, it was a few years ago, but for some of us, it might only be a while ago. I want you to remember the learning experiences that you loved, the optimal places where you felt really flourishing and engaged in your learning. And I suspect if I asked you to write them down, you'd probably be able to remember maybe 10 of those learning experiences, maybe 10 lessons, maybe a few more. But it's quite limited, the cognitive sort of memories that we would hold of those experiences. What you would retain, and what I remember distinctly, is those teachers that were supportive, who embodied a spirit that allowed me to grow and flourish. It was their character, it was their engagement. I can also remember those teachers that didn't do that. I'm sure you have some of those as well in your mind. But actually, that says something to me, because I remember the way I engage with my professional teacher, and I not always am able to remember the content of those lessons. It's the character and the virtue. And this is really key, because if the research that we saw in 2008 is right, then actually a lot of our work on developing SEL competencies in schools, we are obligated as educators to think about how we can be with each other. And the most effective way I think we bring SEL to life is to think of it actually a bit like a language, a bit like language learning. And one of the best ways to develop language learning is to speak it, to be engaged in dialogue. And so for me, the most effective strategies we've used at Halcyon and in other international schools and schools around the world is to think, yes, we can provide an SEL framework, which is taught, but also we can actually develop language protocols and skills to give our teachers to engage with each other, because the kids see it, the students observe how the teachers speak to one another, but also to give coaching skills and restorative practice skills to the teachers, so that when they engage with the students, they are embodying that context of supportive learning that actually creates SEL. Now, you can evidence it. You can measure it if you want. And by the way, Clanbeat can do that for you, and we'll talk about that later. But the idea is that we have to kind of take care of our culture and our community in order to really extensively bring this tone of SEL through it. And it can be difficult, because not everybody in the school would feel that way. So then you have to think about your own space and your own practice. And that's where I think the journey really begins, to be an embodied teacher. Really exciting. So I could talk about a couple of those experiences. Maria, what do you feel is the best place to go to now?
I'm thinking that perhaps, if it's okay with everyone, we could talk about Clanbeat for a bit. We could share how social emotional learning and the application come together, and then we can resume to this very, very important discussion. I see beautiful comments again in the chat. Yes, Franco, hi.
Yeah, I think there are just some questions. Okay, first, I think that I think we can address first, or we can discuss first, and some insights as well from the chat that we can talk about. Okay, so that we can have like a better understanding of how Clanbit will eventually become a very important essential tool in addressing SEL. I think in context as well, no, and Toby and Maria, no, is that socio-emotional learning is not as popular yet in the Philippines. So it's quite a very, very vague, ambiguous term yet, no, in the Philippines. Okay? And I think it's there's a good insight here from teacher Angelina Carpio Reyes, no, that the idea of VUCA world is perhaps one of the driving forces why SEL has gaining grounds in the 21st century. It's because what's brought by the 21st century, the uncertainties, the challenges, no, of the 21st century becomes now such an essential integral part of designing a curriculum. Okay, but Toby and Maria, I think the one of the one of the most commonly asked question right now is that how do how do we stay motivated amidst the workload? Because here in the Philippines, one teacher earlier mentioned about having 400 students in one semester, 9 sections of classes, okay, tons of work. How can teachers stay motivated on top of this workload and as well uncertainties due to the pandemic?
Um, can I have a go at answering that, Franco?
Go ahead, Toby.
I, it's a terribly difficult question because the motivation that is required, it just reminds us of the kind of nobility of our profession. It is, we are having to hold that integrity for not just our students, but each other and our communities. And that pressure is occasionally insurmountable. So to stay motivated would require us to find a kind of deeper calling sometimes within what we're doing, because, and I'm sure it's the same all over the world, but most people who work in very stressful professions get paid rather well, except ours, actually. We're not always validated in the same way, not within our communities, etc., etc. So you have to kind of go for that deeper calling, I would say. And there's two things that I think work really well. One is to reach out beyond the contexts or confines of our own schools, because there are always going to be, like the community that you've established here, Franco, which is amazing. There are always going to be people who think and feel the way we do, dedicated to our profession, but struggle with that level of motivation. And it's brilliant to connect to those people and to say the things that are challenging, and also to find those resources and spaces that motivate us again to get up. So to reach out and connect. And then I think there is this other thing, which sounds a bit peculiar, but which is to be really boundaried about what we are doing in school, to actually limit the amount of time we give things. In certain instances, that's literally just learning to say no to things, which teachers, by the way, are very bad at doing. They always say yes to things and try to do more for their students. But actually, it's terribly important to boundary and limit what we're doing in our faculties and within our buildings. And making that space and giving ourselves that space, maybe finding a moment in each day where you're actually going to go for a walk or take 5 minutes to put some music on in the staff room and just actually have a listen with a cup of tea, but really do things that can be incrementally effective to boundary our experience. That to me is a powerful motivator. And I think also just recognize the hope. We are in a period of huge change and shift. It's just a bit unfortunate that we're in the middle of it, because in 20, 30 years' time, I think things will have changed. But what I suspect will happen is that people will come back to this time to observe the things that we did, because we had to live through it first. And that means that what you do and how you act, however small it feels, is actually profoundly important and may be observed and valued in that kind of ripple effect that transcends our own contexts. So I'd urge you all to keep going and recognize the nobility of what we do and the power and value it has within our communities. And please do reach out. We've shared our LinkedIns. We want to support those communities, and that's part of what we're about. So I hope somewhere within that goulash of phrasing, you might find something that you can connect to.
Thank you, Toby, for that. And I agree. I think reaching out to other people with the same experiences now somehow lightens up the burden. That we're not alone. That we're sharing the same things we're experiencing right now. That's very common. No? So share it out. Let them know about how you're feeling. Okay? I think that's a good venue to do that. No? Sharing their experiences right now in the chat. No, what they're going through and what they're experiencing. Anything to add, Maria, on that one?
Yes, I guess I just wanted to emphasize that mission. So keep on thinking why you came into the teaching profession in the first place. What is it that was exciting for you? Why did you study this? What is it that motivated you at the start? And somehow put that somewhere visually, or perhaps a phone notification every now and then of the kind of virtues and values that you want to live, that you want to show to your to students. And I think taking care of yourself is ultimately the most important part. We keep on saying it, but we talk about others developing empathy towards them, others developing social emotional learning skills, but we need to feel that empathy towards ourselves. We need to feel that compassion towards ourselves, and give us a break and think, it actually is really, really difficult right now. It's okay if I cannot manage everything as I wish or as I would expect of myself, to take things a little bit slower and easier, and to just keep going, and indeed to reach out. We are not in this alone at all. In fact, teachers around the world are experiencing the same thing. So share, perhaps journal or reflect or post on social media, or reach out to your closest colleagues or your friends and speak. I think this can really help us forward ultimately.
Thank you, Maria. And I agree. Always going back to the why. Your why of teaching will always anchor you on what you're doing and what you're why in the first place you entered in the profession. I think Toby is also correct in earlier, no, although not directly said, no, but that our profession is, no one said it's actually going to be easy. Our profession, it's really difficult. No? And this is the profession that we chose, and the profession that we would like to go through and to do. Anyway, thank you for that. No, I also have some two questions. I think 2 to 3 questions in the chat. Maybe we can also address this first. Okay. This one is from teacher Joseph Odilon Hermitaño. We know this time many of us teachers and students suffer deep depressions and anxiety due to lockdowns, many cases of COVID-19 and more. Okay, we have now 34,000 just today. Deep, emotionally hard, sad. What are your opinions with this? No, how are these situations no impacting education, and how should education respond to this?
It's really hard to see that and to read it and just to recognize it, and for Joseph to have posted that, thank you, to share those kind of heartfelt emotions. My anything that I would sort of respond with sounds fairly tokenistic, and actually I think this is a global phenomenon. It's the same narrative that we hear wherever we are, and in order to respond to it really carefully, there is this idea that I keep coming back to in schools, is to talk about coherence. One of the things that curriculum does, one of the things that we try to do as educators, is give young people a sense of coherence, a sense of meaning and understanding in the world that they have, that the world that they're connected to, and to a degree that they can influence that world. They can have an impact, they can give it meaning. And in this time, a lot of that meaning and impact and understanding is eroded, because a lot of the things we took for granted, our space, our time, our freedom, have been hugely curtailed. So hanging on to that sense of coherence requires us to dig deep, to look for ways that we can give meaning. And to some senses, I see that as kind of zooming in on the little details that we have within our homes. I've seen the impact of lockdown on teenagers, those who really don't need to be at home because home is complex or stressful or really challenging. It's terrifying to me to see sometimes how we have had to take those kids back into their homes and we don't get visibility on what's going on for them. And I think the only way through is to be constantly in dialogue, constantly in connection, being able to check in on one another and ourselves, to reflect well, to reflect with each other. But it's almost existential, isn't it? We're asking really deep, profound questions about what the value and meaning is and purpose of our lives and what we do. And I think that's where it becomes really tricky. And I just want to remember one thing. We're teachers. We're professional teachers. That's what we do. We're not counselors always, and we're not therapists. The requirements that we as teachers would be able to deliver counseling and therapy to our young people are also untenable. It's also not fair. And we have to know the limit of what we can do and the optimism that would bring. And I'm often reminded of young people who come to school, and I dare say teachers, who basically just want to come in and feel normal. They just want to be there to learn. They don't always want to have SEL addressed to them or a check-in of a deep nature, because what they really want to do is not think about things for a while and focus on their learning and their academics. And I would say we have to work that balance. It's terribly contextual. To get it right is a challenge. So yeah, I appreciate the comment, and I know how complex a response it requires.
Thank you, Toby, for that. No, and I think with regards to that, a simple maybe the acknowledgement, as mentioned by Toby, acknowledging the context, what's happening around, will actually be very important. Okay? This one, second to the last question before we move to Clanbeat, no, is this one's from teacher Harvey Pareñas. Does SEL promote or strengthen a more learner-centered curriculum, and how?
That's a great question. The answer is, I'm sure that it definitely promotes that learning-centered curriculum. There is evidence for it, and CASEL will provide it for you if you want to see it, Harvey. I know their website is covered in the evidence to promote SEL. And anecdotally, I can say that it also gives, if you feel value and meaning in what you're doing, you have purpose, and you're much more likely to engage in it, particularly if there is an emotional connection to the resources you're doing. I think that a lot of the time there is this, and with teenagers, right, this gap where it's quite hard for them to understand the relevance of curriculum. Why am I doing algebra? I'm never going to use it, kind of questions, right? But actually, if they can connect it to their futures, if they're able to think about that awareness for each other, that's what CASEL's all about. That's what the SEL competencies are: social awareness, self-awareness, and decision-making. That's how I view it in those three places. If you're able to make meaningful decisions based on the impacts of your social experience and the awareness of yourself, you're much more likely to engage in some of the content that you might require deeper depths of resilience to do. I mentioned my problem with maths as a young person, but in order to engage with it properly and not give up or not struggle with it, I required a resilience, and that resilience was fostered within my learning experiences and environment through the SEL curriculum. So I hope that answers your question, Harvey. But I would definitely say, if you want to find the evidence for it, go to CASEL. They have pages and pages of research on it.
Maybe we can get the resource later and then we'll share it to the teachers, okay, so that they can access that framework shared by Maria earlier on CASEL. This one is on teacher Carly Dominic Abihuro. I think socio-emotional learning can be difficult to those who do not want to open up. I think this is a very big obstacle. No? We want to support emotions for our students, but they don't want to actually engage. They're closing their doors. They're cutting off communication. How do we, or how can we help overcome these instances?
I can share a couple of things that I've noticed in my own work or among teachers here in Estonia or Clanbeat. I guess just patience and persistence, consistency. So really showing up and keeping up the communication and the connection, as Toby was sharing as well. I think this relates to the question by Christine as well, that it's difficult to handle students who are aloof without knowing that those students are suffering from emotional anxiety. So oftentimes we don't know what's going on under the surface, and it's very, very hard to notice things. It takes time. It takes very personal approach, building that one-on-one relationship, really knowing your students and building that level of trust that allows them to open up and to confide in you eventually. If the topics are too complicated, then of course there are professionals to support. We are not counselors, we are not support staff. There's designated individuals with the right training. We are here to listen and to notice. And I think one aspect is just different channels. So not everybody is willing to open up face-to-face or in a video call, but it might be texting, or it might be something anonymous, perhaps a survey that you could run, or an activity where a person can be in a different role and then express themselves in a different way, right? So just try to experiment with different things and see what works for each and every one of your students. And yeah, perhaps an application like Clanbeat could be a way to create that space of trust and safety where students are daring to share how they're doing, really.
Can I add to that, Maria? Actually,
yeah, please.
It was because of a question like Carey's that I actually found Clanbeat in the first place. we use the phrase invisible kids, which is a sort of slightly throwaway, not entirely pejorative comment we make in faculty about those kids we can't reach and can't see because they're not excelling or they're not doing really badly. They sit within the middle of the spectrum and they're quiet and we don't have visibility on how they're feeling or what's going on for them. So what we wanted at Halcyon was a way to find out, to do a check-in, because actually within the kind of circle time space of gathered students, the 30 kids in the room, put your hand up and tell us how you're feeling, the vast majority of young people aren't willing to do that. They either don't have the emotional maturity or in fact they just don't feel comfortable doing it, which is totally fine. So what we looked for was a system with which we could blend that learning experience beyond the confines of the classroom, but also do a check-in to see, to take a kind of litmus test of our cohort. And then with that information, effectively respond to those kids that were struggling or were having a dip in form. Actually, that would be a perfect segue, I think, Maria, for you to show the app.
Yeah, Clanbeat. Okay, so we're actually going to have that as the last question. But just quick follow-up, Toby, before we get into that into the discussion of Clanbeat, is that since Maria and you actually mentioned on this or address this question, okay? But as educators, Toby and Maria, do we have like how do we know if I this is not something I could no longer handle as an educator, for example? If something, for example, comes up, a case of a student experiencing anxiety, depression, where will that is there a limit where a teacher can step in and start asking for help, maybe from professionals like counselors, psychiatrists, psychologists, etc.?
I mean, we in the UK we have, and I'm sure it's the same globally, very complex safeguarding expectations and legislation. And on the whole, my view is that we as teachers are there to teach and support the cohort of kids, and we can't offer confidence, and we're not able to deal with case-by-case need, and we're not able to do therapeutic interventions. And I sometimes think we would feel that with a disclosure, that a young person would say, I am feeling this about myself. And it's often the response from educators to say, you know, I'll try and help you, because that's natural, isn't it? But actually, we have to seek that response from our extended support systems, wherever they may be, to share information, to provide careful response. We're not able, and I think we should really resist the idea that we're able to save kids, individual kids. It's a community aspect. We sit within this very complex sort of milieu of being able to support the cohort. So I've often felt like if you're able to, whatever you do for one person, you would have to be willing to do for everyone in your group. And knowing that you are dealing with 600 kids a week means that you cannot possibly take an initiative to support one person more extensively than the other, because it's unfair, actually. So when you feel that that young person is a serious risk to themselves or others, that they're exhibiting ideas or expressions that present serious physical or psychological harm to themselves, it should be shared. It should be reported. And even if you're not sure, it's worth taking that step to provide that information, because otherwise we leave ourselves very vulnerable, not least to the needs of the young person, but actually to ourselves. It becomes quite traumatic. You're not really able to cope with that volume of guidance. So do what you can do for everyone, of course, but make sure you would be able to provide that for everyone. Otherwise, you're stepping out of line with it. And think carefully, is this young person expressing ideas that could present psychological or physical harm to themselves or others? And if you're in any doubt, check it with a colleague.
Thank you for that. And now opens up our discussion on Clanbeat. Okay, so we'll now be again returning the floor to Maria and Toby to discuss us about this wonderful platform called Clanbeat.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, I'd love to do that. So Clanbeat, it is an application which is a space, a safe space which is on your phone, or you can use it in your browser for your learning community, for your classroom, for the whole school, however you like. So an important thing, again, we should start from the issues that we're facing. So remember Daniela, how she is struggling underneath everything that we've been talking about. How can we spot that? How can we support a lot of students at the same time, oftentimes, right? So the idea is that we could support students in taking ownership of their own learning and life. So to help them become strong enough so that they can help themselves, essentially. This whole ownership idea is also known as agency. So they feel like they are the agents, they are the change makers, they are getting back the motivation to do something about their own life and learning. So the model that we are basing our app on is very simple: plan and act and reflect. So the idea is that you're constantly planning something, you're looking ahead, perhaps you have your school tasks, your exams coming up, whatever it is, you take that action and you reflect on how you did. You reflect constantly. You look back, what were the challenges? How did you overcome it? You understand your own resources, your own resilience. You see, okay, this time I managed. Why? What was helping me? How did I do things differently? So that when you go back into the planning, you can take these learnings into account and constantly improving and going through it. So the application has three sort of main pillars. I'll go through them one by one. But yeah, you can always post questions again. So first, well-being support. We have these well-being check-ins. So every morning, every evening, if you wish, on a daily basis, the students can say, how are they feeling from a scale of 1 to 4, really simply. And whenever they're making posts, they can say, I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling a bit perhaps confused. They can share that mood with everybody in the group. There's this direct message, a link to support staff, a designated member from your school community in the app. And there's also data reports. So the staff, the support staff, or the teachers, whoever you wish, will receive a weekly overview of the students' well-being check-in answers and the mood data. So you can see a kind of a temperature chart, literally, for your classroom. Who is doing well, who's in the green, who is struggling, who needs attention, and then who is there in between, as Toby was saying, who is not answering at all, so that you can know who to reach out to. There's the red flags, as I mentioned, for perhaps if they haven't opened the app at all, just to check in with them via another platform if necessary. This is corresponding then to that self-awareness bit, so linking our feelings with our values and with our thoughts and actions. Self-management, so how to regulate ourselves, how to manage our stress, and ultimately social awareness, so expressing the mood of being grateful, for instance, and understanding the moods of others, the feelings of others is an important aspect. So this is what the check-in looks like. It's a notification on your phone. How are you feeling? How did you sleep today? The student respond very, very quickly. It takes like 2 seconds. And ultimately, you're going to have that overview, a quick check of pulse of your students along your day. And this is then the general overview that you will get as the group lead for the 4 questions every day. This can be also done on a weekly basis or set off completely. This whole platform is like, it's a gym. It has different tools or different ways available for you to implement SEL, for you to grow well-being in the classroom. This check-in is then one of them. Yep. We also have communication. So it's like social media in a sense, posts, comments, reactions, but it's safe and private, and it's got this well-being focus. You can also share your interests, your bucket list items as a student. You can get to know each other better, which is again that social awareness part. You can send private messages, again with moods, and you can of course report offensive posts. So we're trying to prevent bullying. We're trying to create a safe space where everybody dares to be themselves and to express themselves. So I think us all behaving like that is an important part of it. So this is a view of that personal profile where you can see what everybody's interested in. Perhaps you can find out who all likes, I don't know, piano classes and and relate to those individuals in your classroom. Then you can explore your community, basically. The safety is super important. So all of the data that you bring into the app is encrypted. It's GDPR compliant fully. There's never going to be any commercials, any ads. We're not selling data anywhere. We take this super, super seriously. This is an important fact, and we want to encourage people to move to platforms that they are aware of being safe and secure, right? That we are growing our digital literacy as we explore these digital tools as well. So another aspect is this habit building. So as I was saying, planning, acting, reflecting. I think reflecting is the part that is getting the most attention and focus through the app. So you can create reflections at any given time of the day. You can share them with your teacher or with everybody in the group. You can also get an automated reminder every Friday to wrap up your week. There's an agenda with tasks. Once you complete a task, you can reflect on it once more. And there's helpful videos and exercises to help you build those habits along the way. So we're wanting to go to a place of self-esteem, of confidence, of motivation, as I was hearing a lot in the comments, of setting goals and reaching those goals. It's some kind of newly found sense of direction and sense of community that's here to support you. This sounds all great and beautiful. It's actually difficult to implement, and it takes time. It takes dedication, it takes motivation to start with it. But honestly, what was the saying again? If you want to walk 100 miles, you just have to start from the first step, right? So intention and belief of being able to get to where we want to go is most important. We are here to support you. So these insights videos, tiny practices that you can do in the classroom are available for free. There's a knowledge base with all sorts of slides and materials and whatnot. And we have this global community, small but growing, Facebook group where we support each other. We can share our practices with Clanbeat. So I'm inviting you to join that as well. We've involved teachers, school leads, and scientists in creating this platform, and we are continuing the co-creation, especially with students, taking their feedback into account, running workshops together with students. And we're now working globally. So there's a user base across the world, really, and exploring more and more collaborations in Asia and Southeast Asia. We've reached 40% of Estonian schools in 4 months because our tiny country is quite innovative and flexible, and we're open to new solutions. We're #1 in PISA tests, so we take a lot of pride in being the education nation. If you ever get a chance to visit, and be happy to greet you here. And finally, I just wanted to emphasize that we need to act, that we need to take some kind of action, that we can no longer wait. The urgency is here. It's very difficult to find that motivation within us, but there's others around us perhaps with which we can work together and we can support the motivation within each other. Observing all these issues and the problems is not going to help us unless we do something about it, where we contribute to a world where the unknown is embraced with grace. So this is a call to action to all of us teachers around the world. I'll stop here for a second. Taking any comments or any questions, or perhaps Toby, if you'd like to jump in. How is this all sounding? Can you relate?
I love it when you use the phrase, embrace the unknown with grace. That's a brilliant phrase. And you should copyright it. I use Clanbeat in schools. It does what it says on the tin. It's explicitly designed to support us. We use it to blend our curriculum. We provide access to those check-ins to our staff. It gives us really powerful and immediate insights into what is going on. And it's starting to change the culture of what we do, which is what I hoped it would be about. And I'd be very happy to talk directly to colleagues who want to see that at a later stage. I think very conscious as well of your time, guys, and you've been here listening to us for a while. But I think if you're looking for evidence of how effective it is, you need to kind of get inside the system and trial it with your students. it's, you know, SEL has complexity within it. Well-being issues are sophisticated. So similarly, the app and its capacity is sophisticated and complex, because it couldn't be otherwise. Otherwise, it again would be entirely tokenistic. So you need to kind of see it and learn that landscape to think about how effective it would be within your contexts.
I'm seeing that there's a request for a walkthrough on Clanbeat. I can happily do that. I can share my screen to show you how the app looks like in the web version. Now, I'm really recommending everybody to use the mobile app, just because then you get those notifications, right? That's when you get all these reminders on your phone. But it is available on the browser. Just quickly sharing that. And I'm showing a demo account, so this is not a real person here, but yeah, you can see the home screen. These are different buttons, for instance, the reflections, the dashboard, managing your groups. But as you open the app, an important bit to always look at are these notifications with that little light bulb there. So what has happened recently? How are your students responding? So we see that because it's a demo account, there's also one other student sharing posts, giving a hug, for instance. So that's an example of a reaction, sharing the fact that they picked up a task from the agenda. You can also see that check-in here. So at 7:30 in the morning, there was a question, how are you feeling about today? As a teacher, I might say, okay, I'm feeling kind of okay. I really slept quite badly. So that's feeding into my overview of my moods for the day as the group lead. Thanks for checking in. I can always go back to these at my own profile, so I can see the outlook for the day, for the sleep, for the social interaction. If I use any moods, then that feeds into my overview as well. Another important part to look at always is this feeds. So we've been talking a lot about reaching out and communicating, staying in touch with your students. This is that space, that safe social media where you can see what others have posted, you can react on it. These reactions are not simply likes. You can tell them, hey, I'm giving you a hug, or I'm glad that you shared it. I'm perhaps relating to it, right? So that the person will get a notification of that on their phone. And you can always access their reflections as well in the shared feed bit. So you can see what they've said about their week, for instance, struggling with COVID-19 restrictions, can't wait. So it's a space for joint sharing, for opening up, for showing who you are, for getting to know your class community, for seeing when is their birthday, when might you congratulate them, but also finding out their interest, finding out what's on their bucket list items, checking, oh, who wants to attend the Olympics, and perhaps reach out to them. It's really about these tiny, tiny things that contribute to a safer and to a more empathetic, to a more compassionate and kind communication in the classroom. You can choose whichever bit to start using of it first. Perhaps it is the reflection practice that you'd encourage your students to reflect after a certain class or after the week. They might do that for themselves, or perhaps share it with either you or with everybody in the class, so that we can learn from each other's experiences more and more. And there's also perhaps just start from that check-in bit that I mentioned as the very, very first practice. Encourage everybody to tell how they're doing, how are they feeling, how did they sleep, and then build your practice from there. You can always reach out to your students one-on-one. Hey, how are you doing? So that's just another way to stay in touch with them, critical during COVID-19 and distance learning, of course. And ultimately, check out those resources. So we have healthy thinking with worry and anxiety relief. So there's a bunch of practices, different exercises that you might be able to do in the classroom, videos that you could just plug in and play. There's also Clanbeat insights on our website that tell you how to use this app in the classroom. Really recommending those. And what we are now moving towards is more and more of these nests. So you can join nests of other people. You can create a nest for teachers, for instance, or you can join a nest that is global, that is an open community where you can learn anything related to SEL or well-being or any other topic. It's a way for us to connect with like-minded individuals who might be experiencing something similar. So yes, we're moving beyond the classroom walls with Clanbeat, and it's really, really exciting. Right, Toby, is there anything you'd like to share, or Franco, do you have any questions?
Would you like to bring that up, Toby? What we're talking about in the chat on how the teachers can try this, Clanbeat?
Yeah, so we have nests, as Maria described. These are these safe and social spaces which exist as a feed on the Clanbeat app. And there are codes that we can give you that would allow you to join a community of like-minded teachers, where you come online and you would then use the app as if, to some degree, you were your student. So you could get a sense and a feel of how it operates and how really powerful and valuable for you in your schools. Maria, I wonder if we share that code now, or we provide that a bit later, but we can talk about that in a minute. But it was just a really good to get in. If you go in onto the app and you're there by yourself, you don't really get a lot of visibility on how it works. So it's much better when you are there within the community, because you can see and respond and interact with things.
We
Thank
can
you so much
write
for
it in
that,
the
Toby.
comments later. And yeah, I quickly wanted to respond to a couple of comments here. Also, there is no limit capacity of members as such, really. And yes, you can have separate classes. That's called a connected groups account, so that you can bring in, let's say, class A and B, and as a teacher interact with both of them at the same time. Totally possible. It's also possible that the teacher only sees the posts. So whenever the students are creating a post, they can choose, am I sharing it with just the teacher, with one individual, or with perhaps a couple of people, or then the whole class community. It's up to them to choose. I'm very, very happy to read a few comments here already. And yes, it's possible to access it through browser and mobile devices as well. They cannot download any more tablet apps. Yes, true. Yeah, go Toby.
Just to say that if you do get it onto your school platform and you want to try it, do reach out to us to get some tips and ideas as well about how to integrate it, not only into the architecture of your school systems, but also into the way you can develop and nurture curriculum experiences. It's good practice to kind of share and explore, and we benefit a lot as well from understanding how other colleagues and communities might use it. We are actually trying to respond to the demands and needs of this change of need within schools. So we're all in it together, and I think it'd be a really great way to co-create and develop the platform as well.
We're actually having a lot of comments already in the chat right now. Some people already exploring and giving some good feedback. This one is from teacher Jeffrey Beltran, and he said, upon exploring Clanbeat, it's truly an intimate platform where you can reflect, react, and learn in a peaceful and safe way. Actually, what I like, Maria and Toby, in Clanbeat is that you have sort of like not unit plans, but like a reflection activities, okay, which they can asynchronously do. Because of course, here in the Philippines, one of our biggest problems is connection, and doing these things now synchronously in a video conference does not usually always work. But this kind of asynchronous aspect of Clanbeat is really hitting that spot now in terms of SEL. Okay, this one is from teacher then Zarer Atara, okay, very powerful tool, a very good tool for those who do asynchronous classes and can conduct live classes. Now, this could be a great alternative to Facebook group chats. Now, I think upon exploring Toby and Maria, no, it looks like a LMS, like a learning management system. Only it focuses on SEL. Okay, much of the aspect, the features, the buttons, okay, the way that the students can be grouped, no, can actually work as a learning management system. But again, teachers, no, don't forget that this is like can be complementary to your learning management system, because this is like focused more on socio-emotional learning. Okay.
Franco, I think it's interesting that you see it as the LMS, and I think a lot of colleagues might use it in that way. I think, but and as you said earlier, it's complementary to the LMS system. So what we're thinking of trying to do is provide those skills to a young person so that it sits on their phone. As much as anything else, there might be resources and support that they access, sometimes beyond the confines of the school day. Actually, they start to take a bit of ownership of their own SEL needs. And in order to do that, we have to make it real and relevant to them. And that transfer, which we all know is so important to us as pedagogical practitioners, actually means that I'm saying to the young person, your well-being is no longer attributed to this 1 hour a week on a Thursday afternoon, but sits within your pocket as a resource you can use all the time. And has a user experience that might be similar to the social media you use, albeit Facebook or whatever. Actually, that to us is terribly important. So it is easy to see it as an LMS. It's also seeing it as a complement to it. Each context is very different, and I think it's wonderful to see how people use it and hack it and explore it and nurture it in their contexts.
Like us about the by Maria earlier, the morning notification. Like, how are you feeling? So as early as in the morning, no, you've been checking their emotions. There's emotion check already. Students can express how they feel during the day, during the week.
And
go ahead.
Just quickly commenting that a lot of people asking, why is it always the same question? Why is it always at the same time? It's there for a reason, so that we start to understand the patterns and we can compare from one day to the next. How are we feeling today, and the day after, and the day after? And it's a really making this a habit, such as brushing your teeth, essentially checking in with yourself as you start the day, and then slowly but surely trying to connect. Okay, I slept better. Maybe that's why I'm feeling better today. Or I connected with my friends, or I spent time with my family. Or there's something that's contributing to me feeling better. How might I be able to do that again or replicate it tomorrow? So keep up the consistency and start with tiny things like check-ins.
And what I really like about that, Maria, is that the data. Okay, teachers can actually start the day, their classes with the data. Knowing, for example, half of my students express that they're anxious for the day or they're stressed for the day, then something to think about, teachers. No, you might want to reconsider that quiz or that assessment or that deadline for that particular day. So really love that analytics that comes after or in Clanbeat. No, okay. There's a question, very, very controversial and interesting question from teacher Harvey Pareñas. Okay? Of course, no, we'll have to be very transparent, but if you're going to be asked, Maria, just curious, no, what do you perceive as a terrible effect in using Clanbeat? Could students abuse it? By the way, sorry, Toby, before you answer, no, this is really what our community is. We're very open, and we're a community of teachers that are really, we're so open, so we communicate our feelings here in the community, in our live streams.
And that is essential, and we definitely love that. So it's a great question. I mean, if you work with teenagers, you know that they can be teenagers sometimes, right? So on the whole, the experience that we have is good. We've created a culture and tone of what we need and what we expect within this app, and it's moderated and it's safe, and we have young people supporting that moderation too. Teenagers say silly things to each other and can be challenging, and sometimes that's the work. Actually, the question is, do you want to respond to those situations, or do you want to avoid them? And we actually want to nurture digital citizenship with our young people. So we say, let's use this app to teach those skills, and when we find those challenging experiences, let's address them properly and meaningful, with restorative practices in mind. So it depends. If your context and community is going to struggle to respond to that, reach out and let's work out how we can help. But on the whole, this space is not does not receive the kinds of impactful, challenging behaviors that you see elsewhere, because they know it's about nurturing well-being and about nurturing community well-being.
I think there's my opinion, Toby, no. I think the only abuse here or impact right here is that because you'll be exposed to the many emotions of your students, the many data about the emotions of your students, okay, is if it feeds your Superman complex. Okay, so do not go to that. Okay, as mentioned by Toby earlier, we can't be solving everything. Okay, we are not at one. There are like certain professionals that can handle that, no. But at least you have the data, and again, as mentioned by Toby, always share the data. Never like a hug, no, and keep all the data to yourselves, okay? Especially data, if those data will impact the students. I think if we use it correctly, the data in Clanbeat will actually drive our curriculum and educational approaches much more meaningfully in considering the holistic person in our students, that they are not only academic, intellectual students, but rather as well emotional beings that they are. Okay, that's I think the. But again, there could still be no that abuse from our students. Okay, but consistency is the key according to Maria earlier. Keep going at it, establishing routines, protocols, and you should be fine. You should be fine using Clanbeat. No? Very, very interesting question. Thank you, Toby, for that response. Okay, any other question, teachers? I think we no longer have questions. Maria, would you like to share also that the message that you shared with me, if our teachers can join a nest to interact
Yes.
with other educators?
Yeah, so we have these global communities, open nests that are available for teachers to join. There's a kind of a support community for getting to know the app, for us to share our good practices and experiences. So if you're interested in joining one, these are private at the moment. So please drop us a line, either via Facebook or LinkedIn, or our email addresses, toby@clanbeat.com and Maria at clanbeat.com, or support or hello. These are our emails. So we can add you to those groups. We can answer to your questions. Of course, every new thing raises lots of questions in our heads. Do we really need it? Do we need another app? Or do we have time for it? Just I encourage everybody to give it a try and to be as open about it towards your students as you are towards us as well. Perhaps you don't know if it's going to work. You don't know how to use it exactly, but we can get to know it together. And if we don't like it, we can decide so together, and we can drop it, or we can give it more time, just be open-minded, be explorative, be curious and inquisitive, and know that whatever you decide to do, there's other people around you who can support you. So just reach out and keep going. That's my message.
And there's like like maybe another question. I don't know, Maria, since you're there already. This
Yes,
one is
sure.
on about a technical aspect of the app. Can the app filter the so-called below the belt terminologies while having a dialogue? This I think no. Do we have a filtering system in Clanbit?
At the moment, we don't have such an automatic filtering system. We are thinking about it, but for now, we've decided to stick to sort of peer-to-peer filtering, or relying on the students recognizing what's appropriate, what's not, and then being able to report. So if there's something going on in private messaging, for instance, the student can say, hey, I think this post is not appropriate. They can report it to the teacher, who then sees that little bit, that fraction of the conversation, and being able to respond to it, to delete it, or to address it in some other way. So yeah, counting on the students themselves understanding what to use, what not.
Well, for me, Maria, I'm not supporting, of course, the below the belt terminologies. But I think if you put filters like that, actually, teachers, no, it will defeat the purpose of an open space. That's
Mm,
first and foremost the idea of Clanbeat, to promote an open space, an open communication
true.
where students can express. Okay, and of course,
Exactly.
that's where we come in as educators, no, to guide them which are terms can be used and cannot be used in the platform. Okay, so we have that authority now as teachers. Okay, so I think that now we have I don't know no more questions in the chat. Now, thank you so much, Toby and Maria, no, for having or for spending a time, no, with us here in the Philippines. Okay, and introducing to us socio-emotional learning. I hope that we can explore further, because this is like it's an infant in an infant stage no in the Philippines when it comes to integrating into our curriculum. Our curriculum are very academic no, centered and focused. Okay, so having this aspect is actually very important. And of course, bring the Clanbeat. I hope that you appreciate the comments of our teachers, okay, how they appreciate Clanbeat and how they're excited to actually use it or start using it um, in the coming days. No, we're almost on the last stretch of our school year for 2021-2022, and definitely by next school year, this is a tool that we would like to use for our classes. Okay, but before, of course, we end no or we ask for your final message, Maria and Toby would like, of course, to show our appreciation for being with us here no, and joining our session for today by presenting this certificate of appreciation, okay, for both of you. This certificate of appreciation is respectfully awarded to Maria Zacarias for sharing her knowledge and expertise in the recently concluded webinar entitled Socio-emotional Learning with Clanbeat, no, awarded on January 13, 2022. That will bear my birthday forever. To be signed by Joseph Angelo Santos, Paula Meije Mendoza, Angelo B. Malyari, and of course, Franco Nicolopiadun, all administrators of Kaagapay Teacher Support. The same certificate will be also awarded to Toby Can for sharing his knowledge and expertise in this recently concluded webinar. Okay, so maraming in Filipino, Maria and Toby, maraming salamat for joining us here in this discussion. Okay, but maybe before we let you go, no, and you can also, of course, have your much needed rest, Toby and Maria. We'd like to ask some brief message, maybe, for the teachers in the Philippines, okay, as we continue to battle the pandemic, no, continue to adjust to the different, to the shifting, continuously shifting modality in the Philippines. Okay, so maybe Maria, you could go first because you're there already.
Yes, I'm very grateful. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I loved reading the comments, interacting with you guys. I just want to say, we are here. We see you. We hear you. We are here to support each other. You're not alone. You can do this. You can keep going. Education, being a teacher, is so extremely valuable. So important for all of us. So keep strong. Thanks again for this opportunity. Passing to Toby. Yeah, thanks.
I echo Maria's comments, and I'm just very moved actually to read the things that you guys have been sharing and feeling. And thank you, Franco, for inviting us. I take things seriously, but hold them lightly. You know, this is a difficult time, and we got to give ourselves permission to get things right and get things wrong. And we talked about self-compassion and self-awareness and being embodied. Just keep yourselves boundaried and well. And, you know, our young people want us to turn up for them, to be present for them. And that requires a lot of self-maintenance. And I think we're not very good at that in our profession. So make sure you're giving yourself time, looking after yourselves, even with all the other responsibilities you probably have at home with all the families and communities we live in. And we wish you well, and please reach out and connect to us if you're looking for those connections to support you, and we can be part of that network for you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And once again, thank you, Toby and Maria. No? Hopefully, we get to see you again. And of course, to whatever you're doing, Toby here, there in London, good luck. And of course, to Maria, no, and both of you in Clanbeat, no, will also be supporting Clanbeat all the way. We'll be promoting it in our community, and hopefully, our teachers find no it very meaningful, the meaningful use no, and the power of Clanbeat. Okay, so teachers, let's show our appreciation in the chat, although you're doing it already. But let's send our thanks and gratitude no, to Maria and Toby as we bid goodbye to both of them. Okay, thank you, Toby and Maria. Okay, so thank you, teachers, and thank you for joining our session for today. I hope that you have like really thought about SEL, how important it is right now, especially. I think that's also one of the things that the pandemic brought, how important emotions are when it comes to learning. That hindi tayo pwedeng thinking lang, or we can't like expect our students to just be like intellectual persons, emotions will always come into play, and it will always be a big part of learning, especially again in this very uncertain times. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us, in this session, okay, and on socio-emotional learning with Clanbeat. And please do explore Clanbeat. I already put the links, how you access Clanbeat, because even myself, I actually found Clanbeat such a wonderful tool. Okay, looking forward to actually implement that, but I'm going to use that in my tertiary classes in the university. Okay, because that's going to be at least a one class experiment that I'm going to do. So, but I hope that you get to have that opportunity, okay? And again, for all your greetings, maraming salamat din po. Umaapaw sa greetings kanina sa chat, no? Maraming salamat for all your greetings, teachers. And kanina nag-post ako pero walang pumapansin sa akin. I don't know if you don't want to take the cash gift, but please, no, if you can still do that, okay, I'll be posting that right now, okay? But if you can, okay. Okay, so, yan. Okay, so I could show you my appreciation, no, kasi mas gusto ko yung nagpapadala ng regalo kaysa tumatanggap ng regalo. So, let me send, some cash gifts to all of you, for those who are live here right now, okay? Pero yan, sobra, teachers, no, talagang mahal na mahal niyo talaga ako. No? Talagang kanina walang pumapansin, walang gustong kumuha nung cash gifts, no? But, that's not big, but that I hope that shows you my appreciation of you, as teachers, no. So yan, maraming salamat. So just send that in the chat, no. I'll pick them, and I'll send some cash gifts to some teachers, okay, to show my appreciation for all the support and for all the things that you do, no, as educators. Yan, maraming salamat. Okay. And of course, teachers, while we're at that, I'd like to invite everyone, okay, to please mark your calendars, okay? On January 20. Okay, so we're going to have our session on January 20 on effective representation for teachers. Now we're going to actually learn how to construct powerful, meaningful, and presentations that will drive effective instruction. Okay. And yeah, maraming salamat, Teacher Regina Rose Arregador. Alam din Teacher Regina that we're also supporting schools, okay, devastated by the Typhoon Odette, no? So we're sending financial help to all of them. Maraming salamat, Teacher Regina. No? But still, I still would like to send, my appreciation to you, teachers, via those cash gifts. Okay, and of course, teachers, not to mention, before that January 20 event came. Please also take note that we have also our event on ClassPoint, okay? That will be on basics of ClassPoint on January 17, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. No, okay? That's going to be the first installment, okay? Of our ClassPoint series, okay? Okay, so please do attend that. So again, we have 2 sessions coming next week. One on ClassPoint and one on effective presentation as part of our January series. Okay, so ngayon, teachers, let me now show you our link for our evaluation for this session. Okay, don't forget that our session is a certified session. You'll get certificates for this. Okay. But please make sure that you accomplish the evaluation link. No? And please make sure also that you accomplish it correctly, na tama yung names, email addresses, so we can actually send your your certificates. Kaya mabait ang mga teachers natin, no? Okay. Talagang walang pumapatol dun sa talagang sige teachers, if we're not going to get this, no, I'll just be sending this, to a school in the next one that we're going to send financial help will be a school in Dinagat Islands, okay? one of the most devastated by the typhoon. No? So we'll be sending them twice the amount, okay, since we have saved it here. Maraming salamat, Teacher Lailani, no, for that as well. Okay, so whatever the cash gifts I'm supposed to send now, since hindi po kinuha ng mga teachers natin na sobrang bait, ibibigay po natin sa isang school, no, sa Dinagat Islands po. Okay, para po matulungan silang makabangon, okay, and recover from typhoon po din. Okay, so maraming salamat, teachers. We'll now be showing you our evaluation link for this session. Okay, so teachers, okay, that's our evaluation link, https://tinyurl.com/January series P3. Can you just please let me know if it works, okay? By letting me know in the chat, no? Maraming salamat. Okay. Ayan, okay. Okay lang po yan. May mga nag-send po, papadalan ko pa din po kayo. Okay? Wala po ano doon because that's a gift po, no? That's I'm really kaya would like to send to all of you. Okay? Pero of course, kung hindi natin magamit lahat yung supposedly no nakalaan ngayon or budget ko for today, I will be adding that no to assist schools in the Nagat Islands. Okay. Okay. So teachers, let me know if it works. Working po yung form. Maraming salamat. Okay? We'll check on that, no? Teacher Christine. Okay? So teachers, kung wala na po tayong concerns, no, at we've the form is working, okay, just accomplish that, okay? You can always go back to this session if you want to and if you need to. Okay? So maraming salamat, teachers, and have a great night po. No? Thank you again for all the greetings and thank you for spending this day with me on my special day. Okay? Thank you po. Have a nice day, teachers.